And it is my most favorite verse in the Bible, passage in the Bible. And you know, when I'm a little confused and I'm a little down, I think of that verse, and that's why I want to speak on it today. Actually, it comes from Proverbs, and it's my youth group should know, Proverbs chapter 3, 5 and 6. And if you can turn to it now, we're just going to go over it. 5, 6, and up to 7. Did you know that verse 7 is actually a way to become healthy? It's not exercising and eating right, but scripture tells us how to be healthy and how to be strong. It's funny. We spend all this money and all this time exercising and trying to eat the right foods, and I'm not trying to down that, that's very important too. But we spend it all there and we think that's what's going to get us in a healthy state and that's what's going to make us healthy. But actually scripture plainly explains how you can be healthy. It's not all about exercising and all about the kind of food you eat. I think that God has provided everything for us to enjoy, and I think that He has provided a way to take the toxins and the fats out. But because we don't do according to scripture, we can't lose those toxins and those fats and we become unhealthy. But if we live according to scripture, I truly believe that we can eat practically anything and that God can give us control to not overeat that thing so that it would cause us to be unhealthy. But the reason why we become unhealthy is not just because of what we eat in our exercise, but we don't do what scripture tells us to do. And I wanted to look about that. That's chapter 3, verse 7. So young people, you want to be healthy all your life, you got to practice verse 7. Anyhow, when I was graduating from high school, I really wanted to, because when we graduated in our yearbooks, the seniors were given like some space to write their final comments. And when I was graduating from high school, I really wanted to put a verse in mine. But I didn't know the Bible very well, to be honest. And I don't know the Bible very well now either, to be honest. But anyhow, at that time I knew it less, and so I needed a verse. So my father gave me this verse. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a nice verse. And it just kind of stuck with me all my life. But Proverbs chapter 5, or chapter 3, right? Verse 5, 6, and 7. 5 and 6 particularly is my favorite, all-time favorite passage of the Bible. Because especially when you go through things that you really don't understand, when you go through some hardships, or maybe it's not even a hardship, but you just don't get why that's happening in your life, or when something even like wonderful happens and you don't get why you deserve that, this scripture kind of explains it to you. And God forbid, and by God's grace and mercy, I haven't gone through something so difficult like a loss of a person or a loss of a child. But, you know, life is not easy and we go through hardships. And this really helps you understand how to get through it, per se. So honestly, yesterday I was a little bit disappointed because I really, really wanted to reach out to the neighborhood and reach out to the people around us. But when that many people did not show up, in fact, very few showed up. But one good thing is the kids across the street showed up. And I always been wondering about them, and I've always watched them play. And I was thinking it would be so cool to really get to know our neighbors. And so the great thing is all 5 of them showed up. And they took all our toys. But that's cool. Anyhow, did you see them carrying it back and forth? And anyhow, when so few showed up, I was a little disappointed. In fact, I was a lot disappointed. And I was wondering, you know, we spent all this time, all this energy, all this money. Mr. Lee and Mr. and Mrs. Davidson has been running around trying to collect all this money. And we spent a lot of money on this event. We spent a lot of money, and I'm like, God, I really felt it was something you wanted. You know, why such few showed up? And then he put me on this verse. So let me read the verse for you really quick. 3 verse 5, 6, and 7, it says, or I'm just going to read 5, 6, and then I'm going to do 7. It says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not on thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. So it says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart. What does it mean to trust anyhow? I mean, what does it mean to trust? Can you say like, you trust me? Can you say like, you trust your parents? Can you say like, you trust your children? Honest to God, I can't say that. And I don't mean just Terry, but I mean Tatum too. It's like, they're still young. How do I trust them? And even my husband or my parents, we say we trust them, and we do love them, but I think love and trust is something totally different. I think you can love somebody, but not fully trust them. So what does it mean to trust anyhow? That's just a word that we flippantly say all the time. Like, yeah, I trust it, or yeah, I'm going to trust. Or yeah, I trust God. But do you really trust God? When something doesn't work out the way you wanted to or the way you planned it to, can you still be okay with that and say, okay, God must have a purpose, so I'm just going to trust him. I'm just going to believe in him. Do you understand what I'm saying? What is trust anyhow? Someone explained to me trust is like, if you go to, who hasn't ever been to Tyson's Mall? Oh, a lot of you would. Anyhow, if you go to Tyson's Mall and you go to the second floor, you will see that they have a hall, the walkway, and there's shops along the way. And then in the middle of it, what is there? A big hole, okay? Let's say I go to Home Depot and I buy a beam that's about 1.5 inches wide. And I place it from end to end of that hole. And I say, who can walk on it and walk across? How many of you could actually say, yeah, I trust that I can do it, and I trust that the beam can hold me? Not that thick. See, it's a matter of trust, but then if I say, how many of you think Tim can do it? He's pretty athletic, he's pretty swift. I can trust that Tim does it, huh? I mean, if he dies, it's Tim. Maybe his mom and dad be like, no, don't send my son. But if he falls and gets hurt, yeah, it's just Tim. See, it's one thing to say about trust for someone else, and it's another thing to say about trust when it's yourself. When it's about you, when it's about me, it's hard to trust. So it's so easy for me to stand here and say, you guys trust God. God's a good God. Trust him. Believe in him. Put your life in his hands. He is trustworthy. You guys do it. And it's a whole different thing for me to do it myself. With my things. With my family. With my children. With my husband. It's totally different when it comes to you. And that is something you have to realize about the word trust. When it's about you and your family and your situation and your faith, can you really trust God? Can you really trust him? Not just kind of trust him, but trust him with all your heart. Can you? There's an amazing thing about trust. Do you know what it is? When you truly, with all your heart, trust in something, it happens. It really does. That's the amazing thing about trust. When we have trust, or we don't trust, but we say we trust, it doesn't work out. But when you truly just say, I'm going to trust, I'm just going to trust, it works. Trust works.
Amen.
It works, especially when you're trusting in God. A couple examples is, one time I was at a retreat and it was someone's birthday, and we needed to have a match to light the cake. And service was almost over, and we were going to do this birthday thing right after service for snack time. And I'm looking all over the place for a match or a lighter, can't find it anywhere. I looked all over that retreat center, everywhere, could not find it. We couldn't get into the main kitchen because this was a big retreat center, so the main kitchen was closed off to us. But we had a little like serving prepare area, but there was no stove there. So there was no way I could get a light. And there was this guy that was helping me out. His name was Jerry. And at one point I just said, Jerry, you take care of it. I trust you 100% that you're going to get this cake lit for me. It's all yours. The thing is, we were so far away from town, he could not drive into town and bring it back. That was impossible too. So I just said, it's in your hands. I'm not going to worry about it. You get it done for me. And I went about like putting out dishes and setting up the rest of the thing. Like 5 minutes later, he's like, I found the match. I'm like, where did you find it? I looked everywhere already. And he's like, I know, I was just looking and I found it. And it worked. I did not worry about it. I did not think about it. I just put it in his hands and I just trusted him and it happened. Another time was I was going to a retreat and I was serving at a retreat. This was when I was in college. I was just a teacher, but I put this retreat together and I was serving at it. I didn't have time to study for my midterm. So I just did the midterm, and then a couple weeks later in class, she's giving the midterm grades out, the papers back, but she writes 2 names on the chalkboard. One name happened to be mine. She writes 2 names in 500 people lecture class. She writes 2 names on the chalkboard. One happened to be mine. And it wasn't because it was the best grade in the class. She said, if these 2 people are in class today, you need to come to see me because you're going to flunk the class. So basically, she said, you did so bad on the midterm that even if you get an A on the final, you will get an F in the class. Anyhow, most times I'd be like, okay, I'll just drop it. I'm not going to embarrass myself that way. But I had this overwhelming sense of trust that God was going to take care of me. And even though I was embarrassed because I had the second lowest grade in the class, 500 people, I was number 498 in score of the worst. 99? Oh, yeah, I can't even do math. 499, can you edit that part? 499, I was the second to the worst score, and I was so embarrassed, but I went to find the professor, and the professor told me, the first thing she told me was, you need to drop the class, because there's no way you can do better than an F in this class. It's a waste of time for you. Well, I kind of lied to her and I said, I can't drop the class because I'll lose my financial aid because I won't have enough credits. I have to have this class. So after really contemplating a lot, she said, okay, then I will make this deal for you. Number 1, you retake the test with your notes and get every question right. And number 2, on the final, whatever grade you get on the final, I will give you in the class. So I won't take the midterm grade. There's only 1 midterm, 1 final. So basically, I won't take them. So I had this enormous amount of trust that it was going to be okay. That's what gave me the confidence to go up to the teacher, go up to the professor. Otherwise, I'd be too embarrassed. I mean, it's just a name. If she never met me, she wouldn't know who I was. But I went to her, and I gained this courage and went to her, and I studied like heck. And then I took the final, and I remember I answered every single question, but one question I just could not remember. And I said, I'm really sorry. I knew the answer to this question, but I really can't remember it right now. I wrote that on the exam. And yeah, I turned it in. I got an A+ on the test. I got an A in the class. If you